Hello everyone, and a good day to all of you. I wanted to give a review today on the Vltor EMOD stock, as I have here. And this is actually going to be a pretty long-term review, because originally I wasn't even planning on doing a review on this until I received a question on this somewhat recently, and I decided that I could actually make an entire review on this because I have quite a few thoughts on it. So I have one here, as you can see, on this build. I also have another of the exact same stocks on this more longer range build of my father's that I will talk about, because there is some differences in the optic mounting height and all of that, which will become relevant in how that interacts with the stock here. So I'm going to kind of go ahead and start on that point right now. That's going to be the cheek weld segment. This is a crane style stock. Most commonly you see this type of profile with a larger cheek piece on the B5 systems stock, the SOP mod stock. It's a pretty common one that you see a lot nowadays. Now, I am going to be talking about some other stocks and how they compare to this. Keep in mind, I haven't tried and actually owned all of them, but they are worth mentioning. So if you look up reviews of the Vltor EMOD stock, which is most likely how you got to this video, unless you're subbed to the channel. Thank you, by the way, if you are. And maybe you're just kind of interested in the stock in that regard. But most of the reviews you're going to find on this are from, actually, at least when I'm recording this, are from well over a decade ago. So since then, there has been a lot of different stocks that are similar in profile that have come out. Some of them I actually think might do certain things better. They all have a pretty similar profile. So what I do like about this profile, and this is going to be the same on all those types of stocks, is I think especially when you have a higher mount, as I do here, an EOTech on a Unity riser, it really helps to have this kind of extra cheek piece. You get a lot more contact with your jaw if you're doing, chin weld as it's called, which does help when you're just getting this up from a ready position to find exactly where you want your cheek or your jaw to go. Now, that's not to say that it doesn't work well with a lower mount, which is why I wanted to bring up this build here, because same type of stock, but this is a much lower mount, just one of the Badger Ordnance 1.5s. But even then, you can still get down on it, and you get an even more sure cheek weld than you would normally, and it works well for that. Another thing on this cheek section that you'll see on this stock, and a few others like it, but not all of them, you do have right here, you actually have two battery compartments, and these will fit up to, I believe it's a CR123, and these are waterproof as well. You can see, I'll just take this off here. You got a rubberized cap, and they just kind of turn out on both sides. Kind of push them in, and I like to turn these levers in. So if you do want to store stuff, you've got a lot of room. The EMOD in specific has actually 3 storage compartments. The 2 I already mentioned, and you also have a third down here. However, this third compartment, it actually only opens from this side here. And the way you do that is you just pop this lever here downwards. I have noticed on this one, it's pretty easy to open. You just push it down, and then you kind of heard it pop out, and it just hinges down. Like so, and you can fit AAAs in here, and I think actually even AAs. Again, I don't really use the storage compartments on a stock, but it is there if you want it. Personally, I think it's better to carry all that sort of stuff in third line gear, say in a range bag or a hunting bag, a backpack of some sort. Now on this third compartment, one thing I did want to mention is I actually had to really work at getting it open. On this stock here, it's actually a lot harder to get. The first time I had to open it on my own build, I ended up using a slotted screwdriver to get it open, because they kind of want to stick. It's pretty straightforward from there. But keep in mind when you first get the stock that this storage compartment here is going to be very hard to open. At least it was on both of these that I have. And then another thing I did want to mention on these storage compartments and on this cheek section in general, you'll see here that they kind of come out on like an interlocking line there. And one thing I saw mentioned quite a bit in some of these older reviews about this is that this can get caught in facial hair. Now, obviously it's not an issue for me. I tend to not have like a huge beard or anything, but my father does, and he's never had it get stuck in this. So I think it's a non-issue, maybe depending on your exact style of beard or whatever it might. Easy fix, you can just put some camo wrap, for example, over it, or get creative with that. But at least here, it really hasn't been an issue. Next thing I wanted to talk about on this stock is going to be the lever placement for adjustment. I actually really like the lever placement on this, and it's one of the main reasons why I sought out this stock in particular, Vltor's clubfoot stock. So how you have it here is your lever's right here, pretty much in the same spot as your standard like M4 type of stock, but you do have a flat here in the middle, and the lever itself is flush with the stock profile itself. Now the reason that I think that that is important is because if you're shooting long range and you're familiar with using like a bag, for example, one issue you will run into a lot with the standard like an M4 stock or a B5 Systems SOP mod stock, which is the reason I didn't choose that one in particular for my own usage, is when you put a bag back here or your hand, it's going to depress that lever and you'll get the stock closing in on you when you're trying to shoot. Now Vltor also makes another clubfoot stock, their EMOD, which is pretty similar to this. It just doesn't have this storage compartment and a few other things which I will get into later, but they also have a clubfoot version of that one, which has the same sort of setup with the lever there. They also have a normal version which does not, which I would recommend staying away from, just in case you're ever doing kind of longer range shooting and you want to take up that position. It's a lot more sturdy when you're doing longer range shooting. And I do it enough to where I want all my stocks set up that way. Moving now to the sling attachment options that you have on this stock, you have three options. You have a direct thread attachment point up here on the very top, and you have a QD swivel on the side, and you can put your QD, your push button, just standard type of QD on either side here. Personally, I don't like running the sling back that far. Now, I have, prior to getting this type of end plate, this is usually where I prefer to run the sling, is just on the end plate here, but everything on the stock itself works good. I've had no issues using that on either of these rifles. One thing I will say, however, that is a particularly nice point on this stock that I do like is the placement of the direct thread attachment up here. It's nice and out of the way. One thing I've noticed, because I have other stocks like this one that actually have the direct thread attachment point on the sides, i.e. the HKE1 stock, which I thought was really cool until I actually got one, and I hate it because these will always hit into the side of your jaw unless you're really leaning forward. So not a fan of that on these types of stocks. I would watch out if you're looking for, you know, any of these stocks to avoid that, but it's not an issue on that Vltor, which is quite nice. Another thing that's always nice is this is a very tight stock. It actually will be a little bit hard to put on the first time that you do, but that's fine. It's pretty straightforward to go through that, but what is nice is it doesn't wobble that much. Now, I have had this for quite a while and it has started to wobble a bit more, but even then, you can see how little wobble, and I'll go ahead and hold this by the lower. It's extremely minimal and isn't really distracting when you're shooting. I've had some other cheaper stocks that are wobbling all over the place and can cause some inconsistencies when you're shouldering from a ready position. And it's the same on that other rifle as well. Both of these are very tight stocks. This is on a Vltor buffer tube. The other one's just on an arrow, and both fine. So there's a lot of good points to this stock. One thing that I don't quite like about it, and this is actually the reason why nowadays I would, after using this for so long, I would actually go with a different stock. So the main issue I have with this stock is the weight. This is a extremely heavy stock for what it is. This is a 14-ounce stock, so you know it's not the heaviest out there, but for this type of stock, it's not like a marksman type of stock. It's heavy, and so for comparison, I have some numbers written down here. This one, EMOD itself is 14 ounces. The B5 Systems enhanced stock, which is the one I'm going to be comparing it to. Of course, they have different stocks, but that I would say is the most comparable because it does have two storage compartments. And that B5 stock is 11.8 ounces. So you're already saving a little bit of weight there. The stock I would probably go with after using this for so long and kind of knowing the weight would probably be either the Magpul SL, which has a similar profile, maybe slightly less from the pictures that I've seen, or the Vltor EMOD. The reason for that is both of those are much lighter. So the Magpul SL stock doesn't have any storage compartments, and the Vltor EMOD just doesn't have this bottom storage compartment. The Magpul MOE SL stock is a 9.75 ounce stock, and then the EMOD, and you're going to see two weights if you look at the Vltor website on the EMOD stock, because they do have, as I said, the standard version, and then the clubfoot like you have here. And the EMOD clubfoot stock is 9.9 ounces. So it's actually a very similar weight to that Magpul. and is a similar profile to this. So that's it. That's everything I wanted to talk about on this EMOD stock. Overall, it has a lot of good points going for it, and I think it really depends on whether you want to use the storage compartments or not, and that'll be kind of dependent on your use case. For me, I don't use the storage compartments, so I would personally go with a different stock now that I kind of know about the weight drawback and all of that. You know, if you want to have a rifle that pretty much has everything on it and just ready to go, and you don't need to grab anything else, and I could see why you'd want this. So you could put all your batteries, and you could even store some spare parts in here as well. So kind of a good plus to these large storage compartments. But if you are in the market for one of these types of stocks, you know, maybe check out some of those other stocks I recommended as well, because as I said, this is a pretty old stock design at this point, and I do think there's a lot of other competitive options out there now, such as that Magpul SL, SLK as well. There's all those different SL versions that are lighter, kind of thinner, different profile ever so slightly, as well as the iMod, which just doesn't have this lower storage compartment, which I think is nice because I don't use it. So thank you all for watching. Let me know if you have any other questions on this stock, anything else that I didn't cover, or anything, if you have one of these stocks that you wanted to add, then I'd love to hear it. Please leave that in the comments below. Otherwise, I'll see you all in the next one. Take care.